They sent her an invitation to the 10-year reunion. Not because they wanted to see her, but because they wanted to destroy her one last time. The girl they called the class loser. The one they mocked, ignored, and wrote off as nothing. They laughed as they added her name to the guest list, already imagining her walking in alone, out of place, broken. But when the night arrived and the engines roared outside, no one was laughing anymore. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of power, revenge, and justice, consider subscribing. What happened next would leave 200 people paralyzed with fear. The wine bar hung above the city like a temple to excess. Golden hour light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, transforming ordinary glass into liquid amber, catching the rims of crystal wine glasses and painting long shadows across the polished marble table, where 4 people sat in comfortable arrogance. Below them, the city sprawled in all its indifferent glory, skyscrapers piercing the skyline like monuments to wealth and power. Camden Thorne occupied his chair the way powerful men do, with casual ownership. One arm draped over the backrest as if even furniture existed to accommodate him. His charcoal suit probably cost what most people earned in a month. And his smile carried the hollow warmth of someone who had perfected the art of appearing genuine while feeling nothing. Real estate development had made him wealthy, but it hadn't made him decent. Vivian Cross held her phone like a weapon of self-documentation, angling it to capture the sunset behind her with practiced precision. 3 photos in rapid succession, each calculated to appear effortlessly beautiful. Her entire existence was curated for consumption. Every experience filtered through the lens of how it would appear to an audience that existed only in digital form. Across from her sat Sterling Wade, whose navy blazer and perfectly knotted silk tie announced his profession before he spoke. Investment banker. The kind who wore superiority like armor and viewed every conversation as a transaction to be won. He swirled his bourbon with deliberate slowness, watching the ice shift as if his drink required strategic consideration. Margot Sinclair completed the quartet, younger, but perhaps most dangerous. Sharp-featured, with the restless energy of someone whose fashion boutique chain had exploded into success. She checked her phone constantly, not because she had somewhere to be, but because her entire identity was constructed around the belief that attention was currency, and she was wealthy beyond measure. They had been meeting like this for months, planning the Westbridge Academy class of 2015 reunion with enthusiasm that revealed their arrested development. People who had truly moved on didn't spend this much time recreating high school hierarchies. A server approached, young, nervous, carrying a tray of fresh appetizers. Camden didn't look up, just waved his hand dismissively. "We didn't order these," he said, his tone flat. The server stammered an apology, explaining they were compliments of the house. Margot glanced up from her phone, her smile sharp. "Then take them back," she said sweetly. "We don't eat compliments." The server retreated, face flushed. They didn't notice, didn't care. Sterling raised his glass. "To success," he said, "and to making sure everyone remembers who earned it." Vivian stopped scrolling on her tablet and something in her expression shifted. A predatory smile spreading slowly across her face like poison in water. She turned the screen toward the others with deliberate movements. "Wait," she said, her voice carrying malicious inspiration. "What about Lillian?" Camden glanced up from his drink, squinting at the screen before recognition hit him. His eyes widened and laughter burst from his throat. Too loud for the elegant space, drawing annoyed glances from nearby tables. "Oh my God!" He gasped between fits. "Lillian Brooks. I completely forgot she even existed." Sterling leaned forward, studying the yearbook photo with an expression caught between disbelief and contempt. "The girl who ate lunch alone in the library every single day?" he asked mockingly. "Are you actually serious?" The photo showed everything they remembered. Mousy brown hair pulled back too tight. Oversized glasses that dominated her pale face. A cardigan 2 sizes too big. Arms clutching textbooks like a shield. She looked small. Forgettable. Perfect. Margot's eyes lit up with cruel brilliance. "This is absolutely perfect," she said, tapping her manicured nails on the table. "We send her an invitation. A really heartfelt one." Vivian was already typing, her fingers flying across the screen. "Dear Lillian," she narrated aloud, her voice dripping with false warmth. "The reunion planning committee is thrilled to extend this special invitation to you. We've missed you. We'd love to celebrate how far we've all come." Camden laughed. "Add something about honoring all our journeys." Sterling raised his bourbon, his smile sharp, "And we should definitely have a spotlight moment. A special recognition for—" He paused for effect. "Unique contributions to our class legacy." They erupted in laughter. Margot pulled out her own phone. "I'm calling it now," she said. $500 says she doesn't show." Camden shook his head. "She'll show. People like Lillian always show. They always think this time will be different." Sterling smirked. "Then I'll bet she shows up in something from a thrift store, looking exactly like she did 10 years ago." Vivian tapped the final button. "Invitation sent," she announced. The notification appeared on Sound screen, delivered. They raised their glasses, clinking them together with sharp precision. "To nostalgia," Camden said, "and to reminding people where they belong." Vivian stopped scrolling on her tablet, and something in her expression shifted. A predatory smile spreading slowly across her face like poison in water. She turned the screen toward the others with deliberate movements. "Wait," she said, her voice carrying malicious inspiration. "What about Lillian?" Camden glanced up from his drink, squinting at the screen before recognition hit him. His eyes widened and laughter burst from his throat, too loud for the elegant space. Drawing annoyed glances from nearby tables. "Oh my God!" he gasped between fits. "Lillian Brooks, I completely forgot she even existed." Sterling leaned forward, studying the yearbook photo with an expression caught between disbelief and contempt. "The girl who ate lunch alone in the library every single day?" he asked mockingly. "Are you actually serious?" Margot grinned, her eyes lighting up with cruel brilliance. "This is absolutely perfect," she said, tapping her manicured nails on the table. "We send her an invitation. She shows up thinking people actually want to see her. That maybe things have changed. That maybe she matters now." Vivian picked up the thread immediately, her laughter transforming into something sharper, more calculated. "And we get to remind everyone exactly where they started," she said, pausing to find the perfect phrase. "The contrast alone would be chef's kiss." Camden was already typing, adding Lillian's name to the digital guest list with theatrical flair. "Invitation to the Westbridge Academy class of 2015 reunion," he narrated aloud. "At the Meridian Estate. Black tie required." He looked up, grinning. "She'll show up in something from a discount store. Guaranteed." Sterling smirked, lifting his bourbon glass. "If she even shows up at all." Vivian raised her own glass with absolute certainty. "Oh, she'll show up," she said quietly. "People like Lillian always show up. They always hope things have changed." They clinked their glasses together, the sound sharp and bright, sealing their pact with casual cruelty. Camden tapped the final button, and a notification appeared. Invitation delivered. The camera lingered on the tablet, zooming onto the yearbook photo, The girl looked small, almost invisible, with oversized glasses that dominated her pale face and dark hair pulled into a simple ponytail. She wore a cardigan that swallowed her thin frame, but her eyes held something unsettling, staring directly forward with quiet intensity, as if looking not at the photographer, but through him, into something farther away that only she could see. The memories appeared in fragments, quick cuts of cruelty that felt less like nostalgia and more like evidence. The cafeteria first, that universal theater of high school hierarchy. Lillian sat alone in the corner, her back pressed against the wall as if she could disappear into it. A thick textbook opened before her. The title read, Criminal Justice and Constitutional Law, marking her as different, as someone whose aspirations existed beyond teenage social acceptance. Around her, tables erupted with laughter and chaos, but none of it touched her. She had learned that invisibility was safer than visibility. The hallway was worse. Her locker stood vandalized, the words, Trailer Trash, spray painted across the metal in thick dripping letters, the paint still wet and running down in uneven streaks. Lillian stood before it, staring at the words with an expression that revealed nothing. She didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't give them the satisfaction. She simply opened the locker, retrieved what she could, and walked away with steady composure. Behind her, Vivian and Margot watched and laughed. Vivian's phone raised, capturing the moment. The bathroom incident came next. Lillian pushed open the door to find her textbooks, the expensive ones she'd saved months to buy, torn apart. Pages scattered across wet tile floors, covers ripped, destroyed, constitutional law fundamentals, criminal procedure and evidence, legal ethics. All ruined. She knelt slowly, gathering the torn pages with careful hands, as if she could somehow put them back together. The guidance office should have been safe. Mrs. Patterson sat across from her, kind eyes, patient smile. What do you want to do after graduation? Lillian? Lillian hesitated, then spoke quietly. Law school. I want to be a prosecutor. Help people who can't help themselves. Mrs. Patterson smiled with genuine warmth. That's wonderful, she said. You have the grades, the dedication. Outside the office, Camden had been waiting for his own appointment. He'd heard everything. At lunch, he stood on a chair in the packed cafeteria. Hey everyone, he shouted, his voice carrying across the room. Guess who thinks she's going to be a lawyer? He pointed at Lillian, sitting alone with her tray. Lillian Brooks, future prosecutor. The entire cafeteria erupted. Laughter, mocking, relentless. Someone threw food. Someone else started a chant. Lillian sat frozen, staring at her tray, waiting for it to end. It didn't end. Not that day. Not ever. The memories appeared in fragments, quick cuts of cruelty that felt less like nostalgia and more like evidence. The cafeteria first, that universal theater of high school hierarchy. Lillian sat alone in the corner, her back pressed against the wall as if she could disappear into it. A thick textbook opened before her. The title read, Criminal Justice and Constitutional Law, marking her as different, as someone whose aspirations existed beyond teenage social acceptance. Around her, tables erupted with laughter and chaos, but none of it touched her. She had learned that invisibility was safer than visibility. She turned pages with methodical focus, her expression never changing, her concentration absolute. The next memory was more violent. Her locker stood vandalized. The word, Trailer Trash, spray painted across the metal in thick dripping letters. The paint still wet and running down in uneven streaks. Lillian stood before it, staring at the words with an expression that revealed nothing. She didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't give them the satisfaction. She simply opened the locker, retrieved her books, and walked away with steady composure. Behind her, students watched and laughed, Vivian among them, whispering something that made them double over with cruel amusement. A classroom appeared next, the ritual of tests being returned. The teacher moved down rows, and when she reached Lillian, she smiled and set the paper down with approval. Lillian turned it over, 98% written in red ink. Behind her, Camden received his paper, 69%. His jaw tightened as he glimpsed her score. He crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it at the back of her head. It bounced off and fell. Lillian didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge it, simply folded her test with precision and placed it in her binder. The most painful fragment came last, career day in the guidance office. Students wandered between booths with varying interest. In the far corner stood a display with pamphlets about law school. Behind the table sat an admissions counselor, patient and professional. Only one person stood there, Lillian. She leaned forward asking a question the camera couldn't capture, and the counselor handed her a brochure, which she accepted carefully, as if it were precious and fragile. Across the hallway, students pointed and erupted in mocking laughter, one performing an exaggerated courtroom objection that sent others into hysterics. Lillian didn't look at them. She simply thanked the counselor with quiet dignity, tucked the brochure into her worn backpack, and walked away. The final image was graduation day. The building stood imposing with red brick and white columns. Students poured out in caps and gowns, surrounded by proud families, friends embracing, parents crying with joy. Lillian walked out alone. No family, no friends, wearing her cap and gown, but with no one to document the moment. She paused at the bottom of the steps, turning back to look at the building one final time with an unreadable expression. Then she turned and walked away down the long sidewalk, growing smaller, until she was just a tiny figure disappearing into afternoon light. A voice drifted over the image, soft and detached. They wrote her off as nothing, a dreamer, a nobody destined for disappointment. The Meridian estate appeared like something from a dream of old money. All marble columns and classical architecture, wrapped in strings of Edison bulbs glowing like captured fireflies. A red carpet stretched from valet stand to entrance, flanked by hedges sculpted into perfect spirals. Jazz music drifted from inside, mingling with laughter and conversation, and the gentle clinking of expensive glassware. Luxury vehicles arrived in steady succession, valets in crisp uniforms rushing to open doors for guests, emerging in designer dresses and tailored suits. Camden arrived first, stepping out of a silver Porsche in a custom tuxedo that probably cost more than a semester's tuition. Vivian followed in a champagne-colored gown, diamonds at her throat catching the light like tiny stars. Sterling emerged from a black Mercedes, his suit tailored to perfection, his expression already smug with anticipation. Margot completed their arrival, her emerald dress turning heads, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown. They positioned themselves near the entrance like royalty receiving subjects, greeting arrivals with practiced smiles and hollow warmth. Inside, the ballroom gleamed with extravagance. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across polished floors. Round tables draped in white silk surrounded a dance floor that reflected light like still water. Vivian checked her phone, then showed the screen to the others. She confirmed. Vivian said quietly, her smile widening. Lillian Brooks, RSVP'd yes. Camden raised his champagne glass. "Perfect," he said. "Absolutely perfect." They clinked glasses, the sound sharp and deliberate. Sterling approached the DJ booth, leaning close to speak with the young man adjusting equipment. "At 9 o'clock sharp," Sterling said, sliding a folded bill across the table. "Stop whatever's playing. We have a special tribute prepared, a slideshow. Make sure everyone's attention is on the screens." The DJ nodded, pocketing the money. Margot surveyed the growing crowd, former classmates arriving in waves, laughing, embracing, documenting everything on their phones. None of them knew. None of them suspected. At 8:55, the four gathered near the bar. Vivian raised her glass one more time. "To tonight," she said softly, "and to making sure some people never forget where they came from." They drank deeply. The trap was set. The Meridian estate appeared like something from a dream of old money. All marble columns and classical architecture, wrapped in strings of Edison bulbs glowing like captured fireflies. A red carpet stretched from valet stand to entrance, flanked by hedges sculpted into perfect spirals. Jazz music drifted from inside, mingling with laughter and conversation and the gentle clinking of expensive glassware. Luxury vehicles arrived in steady succession. Valets in crisp uniforms rushing to open doors for guests, emerging in designer dresses and tailored suits. Camden, Vivian, Sterling, and Margot positioned themselves near the entrance like royalty at a coronation, greeting arrivals with wide smiles and enthusiastic embraces. Performative warmth that looked perfect in photographs, but felt hollow up close. Vivian held her phone constantly, snapping shots, mentally curating which would appear on social media. Camden shook hands with former classmates, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Sterling accepted champagne, lifting his glass in silent toasts to no one. Margot checked her phone repeatedly, glancing toward the driveway. Vivian leaned closer to Margot, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. She RSVP'd, yes? Margot smiled, showing her phone screen. She confirmed. Camden raised his glass toward the group. "To nostalgia," he said with mock sincerity, "and to making sure some people remember exactly where they belong." They laughed, glasses clinking together, sealing their cruel plan. At exactly 9 o'clock. The music stopped. Conversations faltered, heads turned. The lights dimmed. Then, the screens flickered to life. 6 massive displays mounted throughout the ballroom, all showing the same image. Lillian Brooks. Her yearbook photo, enlarged to grotesque proportions, every unflattering detail magnified, the oversized glasses, the uncertain expression, the cardigan that swallowed her thin frame, the way she clutched her books like armor. She looked small, vulnerable, exactly as they remembered. A spotlight hit the center of the dance floor. Vivian stepped into it, microphone in hand, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her champagne-colored gown shimmered under the lights. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice warm and practiced. What an incredible turnout. She paused, letting the crowd settle. Tonight is about celebrating how far we've all come, about honoring our journeys, about remembering. She gestured to the screens, where we started. Scattered nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Vivian's smile widened. Some of us have built empires. Some of us have changed industries. Some of us... She paused for effect, had bigger dreams than reality could support. The laughter grew louder. On the screens, Lillian's photo remained frozen, a ghost from the past, a punchline. Camden stood near the bar, arms crossed, watching with satisfaction. Sterling raised his glass toward the screen in mock salute. Margot filmed everything on her phone, already imagining the social media engagement. But let's all remember, Vivian continued, her voice dripping with false warmth. Everyone's journey matters, even the quiet ones, even the invisible ones. The room erupted. Laughter, pointing, whispered comments, phones raising to capture the moment. Vivian stepped back, her work complete. The four exchanged glances, triumphant, vindicated. This was their moment, their victory. Then, the lights went out. Inside, the ballroom gleamed with extravagance. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Round tables draped in white silk surrounded a dance floor that reflected light like still water. A slideshow played on massive screens mounted throughout the venue. Yearbook photos cycling through, each accompanied by updates on careers, marriages, achievements. The crowd mingled with champagne and nostalgia, their laughter echoing off high ceilings. At exactly 9 o'clock, the music stopped. The screens went dark for a moment. Then, a single photo appeared, magnified to enormous size across every screen in the room. Lillian Brooks, her yearbook photo, enlarged and unflattering. The oversized glasses, the uncertain expression, the cardigan that looked like it came from someone else's closet. The room fell silent for a heartbeat. Then, someone laughed. Then another. Then the entire ballroom erupted. Vivian stepped forward, microphone in hand, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's all remember where we started," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Some of us have come so far." The laughter grew louder. Camden, Sterling, and Margot stood near the entrance, watching with satisfied expressions. This was their moment, their triumph. Then, the lights went out. Complete darkness. For 3 seconds, nothing. Only confused murmurs and nervous laughter. Then, a sound. Deep, mechanical, threatening. The rumble of powerful engines outside. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting eerie shadows across stunned faces. Red exit signs glowed like warning signals. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, guests watched. 5 black vehicles rolled up the circular driveway. Not luxury cars, these were different. Armored SUVs with tinted windows so dark they looked like voids. Chrome accents catching the emergency lights. The engines cut simultaneously. Silence. Heavy. Oppressive. Then, doors opened in perfect unison. Men emerged. Tall. Broad-shouldered, wearing tailored black suits that couldn't hide what they were. Armed, professional, dangerous. They moved with military precision, boots hitting pavement in synchronized rhythm, forming 2 lines from the vehicles to the entrance, a corridor of power and implicit threat. 8 men total, standing at attention, hands clasped in front of them, expressions blank, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the evening hour. Inside, the crowd pressed against, windows, phones raised, hearts pounding. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Someone else, "Who is that? Is this some kind of joke?" But no one was laughing now. Camden's face drained of color, his champagne glass trembling in his hand. Vivian's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against the marble floor. Sterling gripped the bar, knuckles white. Margot couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The center vehicle's door remained closed. Everyone waited. The silence stretched, unbearable. A suited guard moved to the door, opened it with practiced formality, extended a gloved hand, and someone stepped out. First, a hand, delicate, holding a cream-colored envelope. Then, A shoe. Designer. Blue to match the gown. Then, she emerged. Lillian Brooks. But not the Lillian they remembered. This woman wore power like a second skin. Complete darkness. For 3 seconds. Nothing, only confused murmurs and nervous laughter. Then, a sound. Deep, mechanical, threatening. The rumble of powerful engines outside. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting eerie shadows across stunned faces. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, guests watched as 5 black vehicles rolled up the circular driveway. Not luxury cars, these were different. Armored SUVs with tinted windows so dark they looked like voids. The engines cut simultaneously. Silence. Then, doors opened in perfect unison. Men emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing tailored black suits that couldn't hide what they were. Armed, professional, dangerous. They moved with military precision, forming 2 lines from the vehicles to the entrance, a corridor of power and threat. The crowd inside pressed against windows, phones raised, hearts pounding. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Someone else. "Who is that?" The center vehicle's door remained closed. Everyone waited. Then, it opened. Lillian Brooks stepped fully into view. She wore an elegant blue gown that caught the emergency lighting like liquid sapphire. The fabric moved with her. Fluid, expensive, deliberate. Her hair fell in soft waves, professionally styled, not pulled back tight, not hiding. Her makeup was flawless, her posture straight, confident, serene. She held the cream-colored invitation delicately between 2 fingers. The same invitation they'd sent. The trap they'd laid. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, another figure emerged from the vehicle. Taller, broader, wearing a black suit tailored to perfection. The woman moved with the kind of authority that made trained guards look like decoration. Sharp features, dark eyes that missed nothing, an unmistakable aura of danger that preceded her like a force field. She placed one hand on Lillian's waist. Possessive. Protective. A statement. Inside, the whispers began. Is that? Oh my God. That's her. The Maxwell family. Alessia Maxwell. The name spread through the crowd like wildfire. Someone's phone clattered to the floor. A woman gasped, hand over her mouth. A man backed away from the window, face pale. Camden's champagne glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered against marble. No one noticed. Vivian made a small choking sound. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the terror-draining color from her face. Sterling gripped the bar so hard his knuckles cracked. Margot stood frozen, statue still. Outside, Lillian and Alessia stood together. The 8 guards remained at attention, the corridor between them and the entrance. Lillian looked directly at the windows, directly at the faces pressed against glass, directly at Camden, Vivian, Sterling, and Margot. She smiled. Small, knowing, devastating. Then she began to walk. Alessia's hand never left her waist. The guards fell into formation around them, moving as one unit toward the entrance, toward the ballroom, toward the 4 people who had made the mistake of thinking Lillian Brooks was still powerless. The doors opened. They stepped inside, and the entire room held its breath. Tone, triumphant, commanding. Pace, deliberate and powerful. Lillian Brooks stepped out. She wore an elegant blue gown that caught the remaining light like liquid sapphire. Her hair, professionally styled in soft waves. Her bearing, confident and serene. She held the invitation delicately in one hand. The transformation was complete, But she wasn't alone. Behind her, another figure emerged from the vehicle. Taller, commanding, with an unmistakable aura of danger that made the armed men look like decorations. Alessia Maxwell. The whispers began immediately. That's her. The Maxwell family. Oh God. Oh God. Inside the ballroom, faces went pale. Alessia wore a black suit tailored to perfection, her presence filling the space like gravity itself had shifted. She placed one hand on Lillian's waist. Possessive. Protective. Unmistakable. Together, they walked toward the entrance. The armed men flanked them. The crowd parted instinctively, pressing against walls, unable to look away. Camden's face drained of color. Vivian's phone slipped from her trembling hand. Sterling's champagne glass shattered on the marble floor. Margot couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Lillian entered the ballroom, Alessia's hand never leaving her waist. The crowd parted instinctively, bodies pressing against walls, creating a path, not out of respect, out of primal fear. The jazz music had stopped, the slideshow frozen on screen. Lillian's old yearbook photo still displayed. A ghost, a memory, a lie. She walked with measured steps, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown, directly toward Camden, Vivian, Sterling, and Margot. They stood frozen, prey realizing they had cornered a predator. Alessia stopped first. Her voice cut through the silence, cold, absolute, carrying the weight of unquestioned authority. "My wife received your invitation," she said. "We thought it was thoughtful." The word, wife, detonated in the silence. Alessia continued, her dark eyes moving across each of their faces. "Lillian Maxwell," she said, emphasizing the surname. "My partner in every sense, in business, in life, in power." Lillian stepped forward. She held up the cream-colored invitation. "Thank you for this," she said softly, "for the special recognition, the spotlight moment." Her voice was quiet. Somehow, that made it more terrifying. I have to admit, I knew. She pulled out her phone. "I saw the email thread. Camden, the one where you called me. What was it? A charity case?" Camden's face went ashen. "I saw the bets you placed, Sterling. $500 that I wouldn't show." Sterling's jaw worked soundlessly. "I saw the speech you prepared, Vivian, about honoring everyone's journey, even the invisible ones." Vivian made a small wounded sound. Lillian's expression never changed. "I've spent 10 years building something real," she said. "Power, protection, purpose." She looked at each of them in turn. "You've spent it. Pretending." She tapped her phone screen. "Sterling, your embezzlement from the Riverside pension accounts. $3.2 million over 4 years. I have bank records." Sterling's knees buckled. "Camden, the fraud in your East Side development project. Falsified inspections. Bribed officials. I have recordings." Camden gripped the bar for support. "Vivian." She paused. "The affair with Marcus, your sister's husband. For 2 years. I have photographs, timestamps, hotel receipts." Vivian's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the tears. "Margot?" "The prescription operation you're running through your boutique chain. Oxy, Xanax, Adderall. I have witnesses, transaction records." Margot's phone slipped from her hand. Lillian put her phone away. "I could destroy each of you with a single call," she said quietly, "but I won't." She smiled. Small. Cold. Because you're going to remember this night. Every time you see someone you think is beneath you. Every time you decide cruelty is entertainment. You're going to remember that you have no idea who anyone really is, or what they're capable of becoming. Lillian entered the ballroom, Alessia's hand never leaving her waist. The slideshow still displayed her old yearbook photo on every screen. She looked at it, then smiled. A small, knowing smile. She walked directly toward Camden. Vivian, Sterling, and Margot. They stood frozen, prey realizing they had cornered a predator. Alessia spoke first. Her voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. "My wife received your invitation," she said. "We thought it was thoughtful." The word wife hung in the air like a bomb. Lillian looked at each of them in turn. "Thank you for this," she said softly. "For the invitation, for the spotlight moment." She paused. "I have to admit, I saw the email thread, Camden, the bets you placed, Sterling, the slideshow you prepared, Vivian." Vivian made a small choking sound. Lillian continued, her voice never rising, never hardening. Somehow, that made it more terrifying. "I've spent 10 years building something real. Power, protection, purpose. You've spent it pretending." She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone. "Sterling, your little embezzlement scheme with the Riverside accounts? I have documentation. Camden, the fraud in your property development deals? I have recordings. Vivian, the affair with your sister's husband? I have photographs. Margot, the prescription drug operation you're running through your boutiques? I have witnesses." Each name hit like a physical blow. Alessia's expression never changed. Lillian put her phone away. "I could destroy each of you with a single phone call," she said quietly. "But I won't. Because you're going to do something for me instead." She gestured to the screens still showing her old photo. "You're going to remember this night. Every time you see someone you think is beneath you. Every time you decide cruelty is entertainment. You're going to remember that you have no idea who anyone really is, or what they're capable of becoming." Lillian and Alessia turned toward the exit. The crowd remained frozen. No one moved, no one spoke. No one even breathed. The guards shifted position, forming the corridor again, creating a path through absolute silence. Lillian's heels clicked against marble, each step deliberate, final. As they reached the entrance, she paused, turned back. Her eyes found the massive screens, her yearbook photo still displayed, enlarged, unflattering. The girl they thought they knew. She looked at it for a long moment, then smiled. Small, genuine, free. "You can keep that," she said softly. "I don't need it anymore." The words hung in the air like a benediction. Or a curse. She turned back to Alessia. They walked together through the corridor of guards, Alessia's hand never leaving her waist, 8 suited men falling into formation around them. The center vehicle's door opened. Lillian stepped inside. Alessia followed. The door closed with a solid, final sound. Engines roared to life, all 5 vehicles simultaneously. The convoy rolled down the circular driveway, past the manicured hedges, past the Edison bulbs still glowing, past the red carpet, into the night. Taillights disappearing into darkness. Inside the ballroom, silence remained. Heavy, suffocating, absolute. On the screens, Lillian's old photo still stared out, but now it looked different. Not like a victim. Like evidence, like a warning, like the before picture of a transformation none of them had seen coming. Someone's phone buzzed. No one answered it. A glass fell somewhere, shattered. No one looked. Camden sank into a chair, his face the color of old paper, his custom tuxedo suddenly looking cheap. Vivian stood motionless, mascara streaking down her face, her champagne-colored gown no longer gleaming. Sterling's hands shook as he reached for his bourbon. The glass rattled against his teeth. Margot stared at the entrance, where the taillights had vanished, her emerald dress suddenly feeling like a costume. They had wanted to humiliate the class loser, to remind her of her place, to use her as entertainment. Instead, they had just learned what real power looked like. And worse, they had made an enemy they could never escape. An enemy who knew everything, who had resources they couldn't imagine, who had chosen mercy tonight. But mercy was a choice, and choices could change. The reunion continued around them, but for Camden, Vivienne, Sterling, and Margot, the night was over. Their triumph had turned to ash, their cruelty had been answered. And somewhere in the city, in a vehicle they would never find, Lillian Brooks Maxwell smiled. Free, powerful, untouchable. Exactly as she had always deserved to be. If you enjoyed this story of transformation and justice, consider subscribing for more tales of quiet strength and unexpected power. Lillian and Alessia turned toward the exit. The armed men moved in formation, creating the corridor again. No one spoke. No one moved. As they reached the door, Lillian paused. She looked back at her yearbook photo, still displayed across every screen. She smiled. "You can keep that," she said. "I don't need it anymore." Then they walked through the corridor of guards, entered the center vehicle, and the convoy rolled away into the night. The ballroom remained in absolute silence. Someone's phone buzzed. No one answered it. On the screens, Lillian's old yearbook photo still stared out at them. But now, it looked different. Like evidence. Like a warning. Camden sank into a chair, his face ashen. Vivian stood motionless, tears streaming down her face. Sterling's hands shook as he tried to light a cigarette. Margot stared at the exit, where the tail lights had disappeared. They had wanted to humiliate the class loser. Instead, they had just learned what real power looked like. And they would never, ever, forget it. If you enjoyed this story of transformation and justice, consider subscribing for more tales of quiet strength and unexpected power.